If it's a long question, and we can go ahead and answer that when we get ready to uh, at the end of the class. All right. Let me go ahead and do this here. Get rid of this. All right. Let me put him over here. Okay. So this part of the when we starting out the priesthood, we have to start at the very beginning. So this part one is the firstborn of Ab Yahuwah, right? And the Melchizedekian priesthood. But we're going to see that, to understand the priesthood, we got to understand who was actually doing all these things first, as far as the sacrifices and building altars and all these things. Because before the priesthood was assembled, this was already going on. And we also have to find out, how did they know this? Once we get done with this, you're going to understand that the Melchizedek order came down from the Shamayim, that came down from the heavens, and it has always been taught. This is what we had a question earlier about the fallen ones. This is what they were supposed to be passing down to man, because we're going to see that the garden itself was set up just exactly like a temple, right? And we're going to see that. You're going to see that in the end as well, because the father wanted his son to have a house. And so what happens was, with the father wanting to have his son a house, because, our Elohim always wanted to dwell with us. He always wanted to dwell with his creation. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this, because this is very, very important. But if we don't understand this part, then we're going to miss out on a whole lot. And you're going to see, as we get going with this, that all these things, it's not brand new. There's nothing new under the sun. Solomon told us that. So this way we have to understand this part of the firstborn and their rights, and very, very important. And you're going to see, just like how Adam sinned, he brought the law of sin and death into the world. Okay, well, the Mashiach was a firstborn as well. And we're going to see how many firstborns we can count. And then we're going to learn, it's probably going to take us to part 2 or 3 to get to, but then you're going to see that before the priesthood was set up, that the young man was the one that was actually doing this, the burnt offering. See, and they lost that privilege when they took part in the sin of the golden the adultery of the golden calf. So all these things need to be seen, and we're going to see how Aaron was anointed, and and the thing that they had to do, where the wave offering and all these things came from. But there was no oath given. So we see that when the Messiah, in the book of Hebrews, it tells us that he had to take an oath, that he had to, in other words, the Father made him take an oath. See, but there was no oath with the first priesthood. So this is going to help you understand when you get into Paul's writings. See, because a lot of people say, well, that was an animal sacrifice. Okay, well, break that down to me. Tell me explain to me how you know that this was an animal sacrifice. I know I couldn't do it for a long time. I would just say this was an animal sacrifice, right? Not knowing the other commandments that was against us, that was added when the book of the covenant became the book of the law. See, so all these things is necessary, and we're going to learn that as we go through this here series. So let me go ahead and get this together. Hoping it works, y'all. Okay. All right, so we in good shape. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 12 and 23. And it says, to general assembly and church of the firstborn, which are written in the Shamayim, or in the heavens, and to Elohim, the judge of all, and to the spirits of just men made perfect. So we know, by using the blue letter Bible or using our other interlinears, we know that the word just is what? It points us toward the commandments. So these words like just, righteous, righteousness, upright. If we went ahead and went into that right now, but we've already been, you guys been doing this now for at least a year or so, some of y'all, then you should know it's going to point you straight to the commandments. So that way, while we read these different words that Paul keeps saying, just, upright, righteousness, all these things, we know he's talking about the law without even saying the law. He's pointing you back to the 10 commandments, which are the 10 laws. Those are the laws that Yahweh was talking about. And then the statutes and judgments, right? The Hokim and Mishpatim. So let's keep going. Now, Ab Yahuwah, the self-existing, right? Let's go to Exodus 18 and 20. Or y'all can screenshot this if y'all want to. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shall show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. So the work that you must do is talking about the commandments, right? And the way that you have to walk is in the Hokim and Mishpatim, because both the Hokim and Mishpatim is going to teach you how he wants to be treated, right? And also how to what? The Mishpatim is going to show you how to treat your neighbor. So these are important things, but this is a thing, this scripture right here, he's saying teach them wherein they must walk and the things that they must do. And so if the king of all kings, right, the Father himself, which passes this down to his son, right, which is part of the Elohim family, we know, if this is what he wants, it has to be done. And we know that the son is what? The strong arm. He is the Yod. See, he is the one that carries out. He does the Father's will, even when he was in the spirit and when he came in the flesh. All right, so let's keep the enforcer of this thing. Ab Yahuwah, the Father, the all-powerful master who gives all instructions, which we know is Torah, because Torah just means instructions, and light to the Son with all power and authority. All things consist of him. He is without bounds. Ab Yahuwah, the Almighty. Let's go to Revelation chapter 21 and 22. Now, if you notice something, when we start going through these different scriptures, we'll see that the Son is called Almighty too. But the way these scholars did it, they put small, in other words, they capitalize Almighty when it's talking to the Father, but when it's talking to the Son, when it says the Almighty, it'll have a small letter A. So Revelations chapter 21 and 22. See, but a lot of times we've been taught that, that the Messiah has more power than the Father, or the Father is hardly ever mentioned. And we can never do that, because the Father, all things come from him. All things come from him. All orders come from him. Everybody and everything, every plant, every living thing, whether it's on the earth or in the solar system, it obeys his voice. Only problem that has a problem with that is man, right? So Revelations chapter 21 and verse 22, and I saw no temple therein, for the sovereign Elohim, Almighty, capital A, and the Lamb are the temple of it. See, because we even know that the Messiah is going to hand all things back over to the Father. That's coming. But first he has to finish doing his part, right? Because he already has his inheritance. He just waiting for everything for the Father to give the word, because he's the only one that knows when all these other things have to happen before this new millennium comes in. So we don't never want to get away from that. We always want to remember the Father is everything. Ab Yahuwah, he is the Aleph, right? That's the first letter. The Aleph is the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, right? And has a division number of 1, because he is the number 1. He's the emperor king of all Elohim. Let's keep rolling. And a temple I saw, not in it, For the sovereign, the omnipotent, is the temple thereof and the Lamb. Now this is how the Aramaic Peshitta reads it. By now you guys should have a copy of this. And the city has no need of the sun nor of the moon to enlighten it. For the glory of Eloah, and that's just Aramaic, right? Instead of saying Elohim, it says Eloah illuminateth it, and the light thereof is the Lamb. Now that's the Aramaic Peshitta. Aramaic Peshitta is going to be a way better translation than this New Testament that these rascals have given us, right? Because we know just by using our blue letter Bible or our Brown Drivers Briggs or any of our other interlinears that we use, we notice that it's a lot of things added and taken away. Or even if we went back to the Q Bible, right? And went back to the LXX Septuagint, the copy that was done in the Greek captivity. We see it's a whole lot of things that these devils are taken out and added. So we know we have to have this if we want to get to the real bottom or as close as we possibly can. Because we know that the Mashiach is going to teach us all things when he comes back here. But for right now, we always try to get the best understanding that we can possibly get. Because we're trying to make sure that we walk in the will of the Father no matter what. Okay, now this is the book of Enoch, chapter 14, 18 through 23. And I looked and saw therein a lofty throne. Its appearance was as crystal, and the wheels thereof as the shining sun. And there was a vision of cherubim. And from underneath the throne came streams of flaming fire, so that I could not look thereon. And the great glory sat therein. And his raiment shone more brightly than the sun and was whiter than any snow. None of the messengers or angels could enter and could behold his face by reason of the magnificence and glory, and no flesh could behold him. The flaming fire was round about him, and a great fire stood before him, and none around could draw nigh. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, yet he needed no counselor. And the most holy ones who were nigh to him did not leave by night, nor depart from him, right? But we know if we went further on, seeing, go ahead and read in Enoch, we know that there's one that can come up to him. We know there's one that can look at him. We know there's one that can come in his presence and take the scroll out of his hand. We read that before in Revelation. So then we can see, with both of these books, with this book of Enoch, we can match this up with the book. See, because remember, we always, anytime we get hold of a pseudepigrapha, we always got to question it. But we know that if we can line it up with the 66, that is good. All right, let's go to Revelation chapter 5. That's one of the things we got to keep in mind. All right. Trey, do you feel like reading something? Okay, I'll go ahead and get this one. Revelation chapter 5. We're going to start at verse 1. And I saw on the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong messenger proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof? And no man in the Shamayim, nor in the Eret, neither under the earth, neither under Eret, was able to open the book, neither to look thereon. And I wept much because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look thereon. And one of the elders said unto me, weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed. How did he prevail? Because he passed every test that was given to him, right? He drunk of the cup of death. He believed that the Father was going to raise him up, and the Father raised him up. So he prevailed. He prevailed over death, and he prevailed over Hasatan, right? You got to keep that in mind. And to loose the 7 seals thereof. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne, and of the 4 beasts, and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb as it had been slain, having 7 horns, 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of Yahuwah sent forth into all the earth, right? So this looks like the Mashiach, he just showed up, because he said as a lamb that has been slain, right? And we know that he told, what he told, was it Mary? He said, Martha said, you can't touch me right now. Why? Because he had to go and do the wave offering, because remember, he was the burnt offering. He was taken outside, right? There was nothing left for him. The priest could not eat of him. We learned that last couple of Shabbats ago, because the priest was always supposed to get a part of the animal sacrifice. That was their lot. But the burnt offering, they couldn't touch that. So this is what we had to understand. So he had to go the same way they had to have the wave offering or the heave offering and wave it to be accepted. This is what he had. This is the same thing he had to do. Verse 7, and he came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. And when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of the saints. This is why we got to make sure we stay in these commandments, so that our prayers could be, in other words, the Son can take this prayer before the Father, right? And like the book says, who knows? He might turn and offer up something for you. Now, and they sung a new song, saying, thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof. For thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to Elohim by the blood out of every kindred and every tongue and people and nation. So what does that say? So that means just because you Israel, you're not going to be the only one that's going to be in this thing. Anybody who is obedient to the Father's will, which by now we already know, you shouldn't have a problem. And has made us unto our Elohim, kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. And I beheld, now that's very important to remember. And I beheld and heard the voice of many messengers round about the throne, and the beasts and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000s and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power, what? To receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessings. This was his inheritance, because the Son inherits everything from the Father. Just like if we do the right thing as a bride, right? We're going to receive a new name, and we're going to receive a stone with a new name, right? And we're going to receive white garments, right? So when we think about these things, this is why the tabernacle was surrounded in white. We're going to get to all of that. But this is important. We got to understand these things. It's a whole lot of things that has to be white, right? So let's keep going. Verse 13. And every creature which is in the Shamayim or in heaven and on their ret and under their ret, and such as are in the sea and all that are in them, heard I saying, blessing and honor and glory and power be unto him that sitteth upon the throne, unto the Lamb forever and ever. And 4 beasts said, I need whoever that was came in. I need you to go on mute, please. Amen. And the 24 elders fell down and worshiped him that liveth forever and ever. Did y'all catch that? All right, let's keep going. Come on now. All right, so this is how everything went from the beginning. So again, this is why we have to understand a little bit of the Hebrew, right? So that we can get a good understanding of this. So this word right here, Bereshit, means in the beginning. So we know that the Resh represents the head of the Father's household, who is, right? We just read about who that's the Lamb, right? So we know that the Bayet, right? When we put these two together, what do we get? That's the Bayet. What do we get? Can anybody tell me? It's Bayet, which means house, right? Light or darkness within, right? Because we had a tohu and bohu, and the light is always there. And when we go to the Hebrew word for house, it's a Hebrew H word number 1129, which is banah, bayet, nun, hey, right? Life revealed in the house, to rebuild or to reestablish, right? This is what we get when we because see, that's the other thing about these Hebrew letters. I could just go and be reading. I can look at a certain word and right away. I don't need to read anything. I could take each one of these letters because each one of these letters has a number value, and it's also going to tell me exactly what it's saying. So we know the hay is life. So all it's saying, if I put the hay, noon, and the bayet together, it's saying life revealed in the house. What house? The Father's house. And they want to rebuild and establish, right? And we see that the first letter is enlarged because it's putting emphasis on this bayet. The purpose of creation, Ab Yahuwah wanted to have a house, a dwelling place for his son, right? Which equals the first and second letter together, bar, right? Or right here, son. Y'all see that? I can even go in here and get the word Brit, right? If I took out the Aleph and the Sheen, which means covenant. A Brit is a covenant. It's a cutting. We know this, right? So let's go to First Chronicles. So this is why, and I'm going to go ahead and put that alphabet up here for y'all too. So some of y'all should be kind of on your way by now. All right, First Chronicles 6 and 48. This is why we have to understand these things, right? All right. It's just one little quick thing, because again, we got to see this tabernacle. This is what we're trying to see get set up. Their brethren also, the Levites, were appointed unto all manner of service of the tabernacle of the house of Elohim. So it's Elohim's house. But all the whole Elohim family lives in the Father's house. But the son wanted to have a house, and the son wanted a bride. This is what this whole thing is about, right? All right, so we have the word tabernacle is just in the Hebrew mishkan. So we're gonna keep rolling. Now, the temples, their function and spiritual significance. Now, I meant to break this down a little bit more, and I have it broke down on other slides, but we're gonna look at this real quick because I want you guys to see something here. So the same way that the garden was set up, you see the same thing in the temple. Same exact thing. You got the cherubim when they were put out of the garden, right? Over here, what do you see on this? I mean, they're on the curtains. Cherubim is there. See, you have the holy place. You got the holy place here. You got the mountain of Yahuwah, and guess what? Same thing. That's what this represents. That's why could nobody go back there, right? Moses was able to go on Sinai, which also is also a kind of a replica of the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So then you have the four heads of the four rivers that come out. Then you had the bronze laver that was meant for water of life, to cleanse sin. This is why they had to. A lot of us thought that we being a Muslim because they have to wash up before they even go pray. But guess what? That comes from us because the priests had to do this all the time before they even started their service, and they had priestly garments that they put on. See. So we know, so when we look at this thing, it's almost exact. I'm telling you, it's almost exactly alike. If we went to the Septuagint, Genesis 3 and 8, we're not going to do that today. We'll see that the midst or holy of holies is where Yahuwah is at. See, it's the same thing with this temple. I mean, I could look at it like Mount Sinai. I can mean the same thing. Because at one time, Moshe was the only one that could even attempt to go to at the top of Mount Sinai, right? Then later on, that was transferred to Aaron. And then he can only come back here once a year. And when we look at this, if we went up here to the East Gate, this is called the way. So we know what the way represents, right? Any Christian, if you ask any Christian, what's the way? He's gonna tell you it's the way of righteousness, right? So that's what all this means here. Let's go to Genesis chapter 22. Genesis chapter 22. I had another thing, but see, we all kind of already know this, and we got some new people up here, and I'm sorry for that because I had this thing broke down in different sections. But I didn't do that on this one because I actually didn't even know who was going to show up for as far as the visitors. Let's go to Genesis chapter 22. and verse 1 through 8. Okay. Now, because we're going to see this a little bit later. Matter of fact, you know what? Let me see something. Let's go. Let's go to 2 Samuel instead. We're going to come back to this a little bit later. 2 Samuel 15 and 30, and this is like old. I think this is one of my old slides from a couple of years ago. 2 Samuel 15. Yeah, this is from a couple of years ago. 2 Samuel 15, we're going to read verse 30. All right, and David went up by the ascent of Mount Olive and wept as he went up and had his head covered, and he went barefoot, and all the people that was with him covered every man his head, and they went up weeping as they went up, right? Now, so, and we're going to get to David too, because we're going to show you that David had a lot of similarities. Actually, he was a king priest himself, because we're going to see where all this comes from. But again, it's just a shadow picture of the priesthood, right? Because we know David was able to go into the temple and eat the showbread. Nothing happened to David. Anybody else, though, he might have been killed. Let's go to Acts chapter 9. Just kind of want to show you that, what we get there. Just some little shadow pictures for you. Acts chapter 9, verse 1 through 12. Okay. All right. Trey, are you there? Trey,
Yes.
Go ahead and read me Acts chapter 9, verse 1 through 12.
All right. Acts 9, verses 1 through 12. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of Yahuwah, went unto the high priest and desired of him letters to Damascus, to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem.
Right. So, and again, now here we are, the assembly, because I don't like to use the word church. The assembly was reborn, right? Because we got other lessons to show that the first church was in the wilderness. First one was in the wilderness with the baptism, with the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, everything was just exactly. I mean, it takes a little digging out, but this is where the first assembly was at. Because we would look up the word assembly, it's going to tell us in the Hebrew that it means congregation or church. But he was after those that was in the way. All right, go ahead, son.
Verse 3, as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shone round about him a light from the Shemayim, or heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And he fell to the earth and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? And he said, who are you, sovereign? And the sovereign said, I am Yahusha, whom you persecute. He is hard for you to kick against the pricks.
Okay, jump down to verse 17, and we're going to hit 17 and 18. I want to show y'all something right there, too. Go ahead.
Verse 17 through 18. And Ananias went his way and entered into the house, and putting his hands on him, said, Brother Saul, the sovereign, even Yahusha, that appeared unto you in the way as you came, has sent me, that you might receive your sight and be filled with the Ruach.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately there fell from his eyes, as it had been scales, and he received sight forthwith and arose and was immersed.
Right. So when we look at the baptism, right? So this is what this kind of represents for the priests each time they cleaned themselves before they went in the temple. And we know that the children of Israel came through what? Came through the Red Sea, and they all was baptized, right? And we're going to see Paul talking about this. Now, this seed of reformation, y'all can write that down. I'll just put that in your notes because we're going to get to that a little bit later. And Jubilees 1:15 through 18, I want you to write that down. Because as we see, when Adam blew everything over here, then this house had to be set. But how this house was going to be set up regardless. But in the beginning, it should have been right here. See, but since man fell, but the Father still and is merciful, and the Son still being obedient to the Father, right? What did he do? They went ahead and had a tabernacle set up because Moses had to set the tabernacle up as a pattern that was given to him. Because guess what? The tabernacle was already in the heavens, because this is where the Melchizedek order came from, written on the heavenly tablets. We're going to see this. See, so again, this baptism is or the immersion is very, very important. If you want the scales to really fall off your eyes, you need to do that. You need to have this done. All right, so let's keep going. Because like I said, we're going to get into the sea of Reformation a little bit later. I just wanted y'all to kind of look at this and get this in your mind so you can understand what's going on, because we're going to show you by the end of this lesson, by the time we get done through this series, you're going to see that Mount Zion and New Jerusalem is going to be just like the Garden of Eden. It's going to go right back to what it was. Now, the word Adam is Adam, or Adam, as they like to say, means the blood of Elohim, right? Adam, number H120, Adam, man or mankind, first man, or the first man that was created, right? Or the first man of the new creation. We could say it like that, because we know by looking at other pseudepigraphas, there was some other things going on. This was a brand new thing, because when Adam was created, he was taken out of the land of his birth, as both books said. We're going to show you that. And he was placed in the garden. See, he was placed in that temple. So if we went to Luke 3:38, let's go to Luke 3:38. But Adam means blood of Elohim. Let's go to Luke 3:38, right? We had the Aleph, the Dalet, and the Mem. It's easy we could easily break this down, because when we break this down, we know the Aleph is a strong leader, plus the Dalet and the Mem, the strong leader opens the door and brings life. Luke chapter 3:38, Trey.
Luke chapter 3, verse 38. Which was the son of Enoch, which was the son of Seth, which was the son of Adam, which was the son of Elohim.
Okay, so he's talking about Adam. Adam was the son of Elohim. Let's go to Ecclesiastes now, chapter 2 and 21. I mean, these things need to be understood. Even in Ephesians 2 and 15, it tells us Adam, the firstborn of man. HaMashiach, the firstborn of the new creation. Because it's going to be a new creation. It's going to be another new, I can say it like that. But some of us don't understand that, right? Because they'll say, well, where did this man get his wife from? Okay, well, there's some other stuff that, again, some of these things have been removed from this King James Version. See, so we have to use some of these books that the Catholic Church removed on purpose. We can go in history and prove that. This is why we use these books, because some of these books were a part of the first writing, but the Catholic Church decided what they want you to read and what they don't. And when you start looking at the book of Jubilees, the book of Jasher, the book of Enoch, you can see why they took them out is because they're steady telling you about the commandments, steady telling you about the law, steady telling you, I mean, it's all there. They're steady telling you how the wicked is going to be destroyed. They go into depth about what some of these things that the will of the Father tells us not to do. Ecclesiastes chapter 2 and 21, Trey. Go ahead and read it when you get there, son.
Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 21. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and in equity Yet to a man that has not labored therein, shall he leave it for his portion? This also is vanity and a great evil.
Right, because we want to make sure our portion is right. Then when the first slide we read, the Father said, teach them in the way that they must walk, and the labor or the works that they must do. I mean, it's all through the book. But again, we're gonna keep moving now. But that's very important to understand about Adam. Now, and after Adam had completed 40 days in the land where he had been created, we brought him into the Garden of Eden to till and keep it. But his wife they brought in on the 80th day. And after this, she entered into the Garden of Eden, right? And we can find that thing still happening like that too. Now, this is one time I want somebody to answer me. And this is I'm sorry, I didn't put it down. Jubilees, I think it's chapter 3 or 4. Could somebody tell me about this thing about the cleanliness law? Anybody? About how long a woman had to wait before she can come in the temple? Anybody? Why?
I think it was 7 days.
Yeah, I was gonna say 7 days.
Why?
Yes, honey.
Do you know? After a woman had a baby, how many days she had?
60 days.
You sure it's not 80? All right, y'all think about that. We're gonna
Didn't
keep
it depend on the sex of the child too?
Well, that's a question I want y'all should be able to tell me by the next time we get up here.
40 days after the birth to a boy and 80 days after giving birth to a girl.
All right, there we go, Tracy. That's what I'm saying. Y'all got them computers in your hand. I mean, you know, and y'all supposed to have y'all blue letter Bibles up right now. So we can just see some parallels. I just want to kind of throw that out there. So, but again, in these other books, you know, we got them, we got to use them. Jubilee Chapter 3 and 15. And in the first week of the first Jubilee, now we can also break this calendar down too. Adam and his wife were in the Garden of Eden for 7 years, tilling and keeping it. And we gave him work and we instructed him to do everything that is suitable for tilling. And he tilled the garden and was naked and knew it not, and was not ashamed. And he protected the garden from the birds and the beasts and the cattle, and gathered its fruit and eat, and put aside the residue for himself and for his wife, and put aside that which was being kept, right? You know? All right, let's go to Genesis chapter 2. And verse 15. Go ahead, Trey. Genesis chapter 2 and 15.
Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15. And Yahuwah took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it.
Right. So he took the man and put him in the garden, right? Because again, the garden represents the temple. And we're going to show you that this man was actually, he was the high priest. Where you get that from? He was king over the whole earth. But he gave that up. And we're going to show you that. We're going to prove these things. Now, the mind is the core of the man. His thinking, his being, it is, right? So if we went to the word, it says, if you be willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured with the sword, for the mouth of Yahuwah Elohim have spoken it, right? Isaiah 1, 18 through 20. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 23 and 7, Trey.
Proverbs chapter 23 and verse 7. For as he think in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, says he to you, but his heart is not with you.
So as you think in your mind, that's how you are. So if you think you can keep these commandments, you can do it. If you think you can do the things that you must do, you can do them. Right? If you need to study more, you can do it. Right? It's all what's in your mind and what your heart says, right? Because we know if we went to the Blue Letter Bible or we went to one of our other interlinears and we look at the word heart, it's going to say your mind, your thoughts, your desires. So we got to make sure that our desires is pointed toward doing the Father's will. Isaiah 55, 8-9, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are my ways, nor are your ways my ways, declares Yahweh. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. But he still always has his hand out and says, come now, let us reason together, says Yahweh Elohim. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 1-11. I was talking to a brother the other day, and he said, well, man, he was asking me questions. Well, why you got this? Why you got that? I said, hold on, man, I'm supposed to have this. I can look like this. Well, you know, we under the new covenant now. I said, well, explain to me Jeremiah 31:31. But if that's the case, don't you go to church? What you go to church for? Because you already should have all this stuff in your mind, in your heart. You should need no teacher. You should be filled with the Ruach and know all things. Because by now you've been taught. Because guess what? He said, I'm going to put a new spirit inside of you, along with the new covenant. He just looked at me. Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 1-11.
Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 1-11. The word which came to Jeremiah from Yahuwah, saying, arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will cause you to hear my words. Then I went down to the potter's house, and behold, he wrought a work on the wheels. And the vessel that he made of clay was married in the hand of the potter. So he made it again another vessel, as seemed good to the potter to make it. Then the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, O house of Israel, cannot I do with you as this potter, says Yahuwah? Behold, as the clay is in the potter's house, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. At what instant I shall speak concerning a nation and concerning the kingdom, to pluck up and to pull down and to destroy it. If that nation against whom I have pronounced turn from their evil, I will repent of the evil that I thought to do to them.
Wait a minute, wait a minute, he said, wait a minute, well, read that again. That can't be right. Go ahead and read that again. He did what?
If that nation against whom I have pronounced turn from their evil, I will repent of the evil that I have thought to do unto them.
Go ahead.
And at what instant I shall speak concerning a nation and concerning a kingdom, to build and to plant it. If it do evil in my sight to obey and not obey my voice, then I will repent of the good where I have said I will benefit them. Now therefore, go, speak to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, thus said Yahuwah, behold, I frame evil against you and devise a device against you. Return now, everyone from his evil way, and make your ways and your doings good.
Right, and this is what we have to do, right? Because like right now, we see that this nation and the whole world is in trouble. Everything on fire, it's underwater. You got all these different tempests, right? Because we know we can go to Psalms and he says that he sends the tempests, right? We can go to the book of Enoch and it can tell you that the messengers are the ones that actually form them, right? Or we can go to Psalms and we can see how he used the evil messengers to tear up Egypt. This is why this country is going through this, and we in this country. So we have to remember verse 11, see, because we are Israel, physical and spiritual. So we got to turn from these ways, right? Because we trying to get back into the garden, right? We trying to get back to be able to see that new temple, right? So let's keep rolling. I am two of the most powerful words in existence. For what you put after them, you become. That's something very important we need to keep in mind. The Melchizedekian priesthood is a priesthood in the heavens. And when man was created, He was supposed to be the firstborn king priest of the earth and over the earthly tabernacle. King, priest, firstborn are the offices of the Melchizedekian priest. This office always belonged to Yahusha. He is the overseer of the creation on behalf of Yahuwah the Father. And John 1, verse 1 and verse 10, this was subleased to Adam because this is the only way you can rule in the Father's kingdom. See, Adam was subleased this, right? But as you see, the Yahusha Elohim always came in the cool of the day, came down to visit with him. And so it didn't belong to him. He had a job he was supposed to do. And man fell, therefore. Yahusha was given the title forever because he took this back over, right? With an oath. Let's go to John chapter 1. See, that's why Paul tells you the first priesthood was set up without an oath. But this man, right? You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. John chapter, what is this? John 1 and 1, and then verse 10, Trey. Go ahead and get it when you get there.
John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim.
Okay, so we know that if we read, we were like, well, how could this be? Because we know they was a God, right? And we know that they are all Elohim, right? So y'all should know this by now. Let's go down to verse 10, Trey.
Verse 10. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not.
Go give me 11 and 12.
Verse 11 through 12. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of Elohim, even to them that believe on his name.
Right, so this is why the Mashiach was always fighting the Pharisees, because they didn't believe in him. They had their own books, the Mishnah and the Talmud. Those are the main two books that they had. They had their own set of laws. So this is why we can keep the commandments all day long. If we ain't trying to deal with the Mashiach, there is no salvation for you, because then you're just under the law. See, a lot of times we be saying law, 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 but we got to understand, right, what the Mashiach's role was, because he was the ultimate sacrifice. He was the ultimate love gift, right? And he came to what? Restore the breach. He came to restore the covenant. But you still got to do your part. You have to. If you want to be in that new order, when you're going to get these laws written in your mind, this is what you got to have him. Let's go to Psalms 110, Trey. And even verse 14, and the word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Now, if we went and looked this way, if we went and looked up grace and truth, right? He came full of mercy and the commandments, because truth ain't nothing but the commandments. We can go to Psalms and show you that. But again, just reading this, you'll miss it every time. Psalms 110, Trey. Because if you ask the average person, well, what is truth? Well, that's just when you be honest. No, partner. Truth is the commandments. Truth is the law. Right there in the Psalms. Psalms 110 and 4.
Psalms 1, verse 4. Yahuwah has sworn and will not repent. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek.
Boom, there it is. That's where you think Paul got that from. See, but that's one thing I learned when I was at the Israel of God. I learned how to navigate this Bible. And I learned how to take and match, how to find what Paul was saying. And see, a lot of times people don't understand that. They miss this. Because they think that, well, this is the New Testament, like it's some type of brand new thing. All they had to go on was what? The original manuscripts. They didn't have nothing else. Psalms 89, Trey, we're gonna read verse 1 through 7. Psalms 89, verse 1 through 37.
Psalms 89, verse 1 through 37. I will sing of the mercies of Yahuwah forever with my mouth. I will make known his faithfulness to all generations. For I have said, mercy shall be built up forever. Your faithfulness shall you establish in the very heavens.
Mm-hmm.
I have made an agreement with my chosen. I have sworn unto David, my servant. Your seed will I establish forever and build up your throne to all generations. Salah. And the heavens shall praise your wonders, O Elohim, your faithfulness also in congregation of the saints.
Right, in the congregation of the saints, because we know that he's faithful, right? To those that do his will. Go ahead, verse 6, son.
For who in the heaven can be compared unto Yahuwah? Who among the sons of the mighty can be likened unto Yahuwah? Elohim is greatly to be feared in the assembly of saints, and to be had in reverence of all them that are about him. Yahuwah, the Elohim of hosts, who is a strong Elohim, like who is a strong Elohim like unto you, or to your faithfulness round about you.
Right, who's a strong sovereign. Go ahead, you all right.
You rule the raging of the sea. When the waves thereof arise, you still them. You have broken Rahab in pieces as one that is slain. You have scattered your enemies with you strong with your strong arm.
Okay, stop right there. So how do we, who is this? Oh, who is this in verse 8? Oh, sovereign Elohim of hosts, who is a strong sovereign. Who could this be? We know if we went to the Hebrew, the word host is going to be Sabaoth. Or we can use that as almost saying Sabbat. So we know that this Elohim is the Elohim of the Sabbat. We know when he came in the flesh who that was. That's the Mashiach. Then we jump down here to verse 10. What did he say? That thou scatterest thine enemies. Now he's going back to the Father. That you scatter your enemies with thy strong arm. Who is the strong arm of the Father? The Son. Go ahead, Trey, verse 11.
The Shemaim are yours. The earth also is yours. As for the world and the fullness thereof, you have founded them. The north and the south you have created. Tabar and Hermon shall rejoice in your name. You have a mighty arm. Strong is your hand, and high is your right hand.
Right, because he used his right hand man or his right hand, the Yod, to destroy what? He to do all these marvelous things that he once done. See, the Son is the enforcer of the Father. Keep going, son.
Justice and judgment are the habitation of your throne. Mercy and truth shall go before your face.
Okay, mercy and truth is always around the Elohim. And then guess what? When the Son put on flesh and walked around, he was full of mercy and truth. Go ahead, son.
Blessed is the people that know the joyful sound. They shall walk, O sovereign, in the light of your countenance. In your name shall they rejoice all day. In your righteousness shall they be exalted.
Right, in his name shall they rejoice all day, and in thy righteousness, which is his commandment, shall they be exalted. That's how we're going to get exalted. Go ahead, son.
For you are the glory of their strength, and in your favor our horn shall be exalted, or
Mhm.
our nation shall be exalted. For the sovereign is our defense, and the set apart one of Israel is our king.
Okay, wee, that's powerful. Go ahead, son.
Then shall you speak in vision to the set apart one, and say, I have laid help upon one that is mighty. I have exalted one chosen out of the people.
Woo, boy, woo, his holy one. We know who that is, right? Keep going, son.
I have found David my servant, with my holy oil have I anointed him, with whom my hand shall be established. My arm also shall strengthen him.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy shall not exact upon him, nor the son of the wickedness afflict him. And I will beat down his foes before his face, and plague them that hate him.
And guess what? If we followers of keeping his commandments, right, and his whole Hakeem and Mishpat team, he's gonna do the same thing for us. Go ahead, son.
But my faithfulness and my mercy shall be with him, and in my name shall his horn be exalted.
So his name, his horn is exalted in the name too. Go ahead.
I will set his hand also in the sea, and his right hand in the rivers. He shall cry unto me, you are my father, my Elohim, and the rock of my salvation.
Go ahead.
Also, I will make him my firstborn.
Ooh, his firstborn. Okay, if we was confused before, after these two scriptures, after these two verses, we definitely know what he's talking about now. Go ahead, son.
Higher than the king of the earth. My mercy will I keep for him forevermore, and my covenant shall stand fast with him.
Ooh, yes, it does. And man, we praise y'all for that. For him to even send his messenger, his ultimate messenger, right, to come here and handle that business. Because now we got a chance. Go ahead, son.
His seed also will I make to endure forever, and his throne as the days of heaven.
Okay, so now he jumping back and forth because he jumping in between David and his hymn. And so we see these things. Go ahead.
If his children forsake my law and walk not in my judgments, if they break my statutes and keep not my commandments, then will I visit their transgression with the rod and their iniquity with stripes.
Right. So we seeing, so like again, we seeing these because you got to remember, David was what? A shadow picture of the Mashiach. Right? Because we can go to the prophets and we can see even man, we even go to Moses. I mean, him and the Messiah had so many things that they went through that was alike. And I don't even mention Joseph. It was like, wow. Go ahead, son.
Nevertheless, my loving kindness will I not utterly take from him, nor suffer my faithfulness to fail. My covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that is gone out of my lips.
This is what we got to understand because the 10 Commandments is the covenant. See, that's what people be missing. The 10 Commandments is the covenant. It's the testimony. Like the tabernacle of testimony. See, we got the Ark of the Covenant. That's what, see, I mean, so we got to understand this is the problem. This is what Israel is always in trouble for because we refuse to keep this covenant. When you say covenant, people be thinking all kind of stuff. When he's talking, he's always trying to say, you broke my covenant, return to my covenant, stop doing this. You're supposed to love my covenant, my covenant, my covenant, my covenant, my covenant. Why? Because he wrote them with his own finger. And if we went to Jubilee Chapter 50, he tells you that. Go ahead. Go ahead, Trey. And we can go to Exodus and see the same thing. Go ahead, son.
My covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that is gone out of my lips. Once have I sworn by my holiness that I will not lie unto David. His seed shall endure forever, and his throne as the sun before me. It shall be established forever as the moon, and as a faithful witness in the Shemayim. Hallelujah.
All right, hallelujah. Let's keep rolling. Now, the garden was an example of the first house. When Adam broke Elohim's commandment, being the high priest king, he had dominion and was supposed to replenish the earth. The master tried to rebuild or establish another, Bayet, or house with Israel. And when the youngsters, the firstborn priests, right? Because the youngsters were the firstborn out of every tribe. We're going to see that. Right? So after they blew it, and then Aaron rebelled with the people, the golden calf, the new house in the wilderness was polluted. And even though Yahuwah Elohim made a covenant with the priest through Phinehas, Numbers 25, verse 1, and then verse 15, they eventually oppressed the people and did evil themselves, causing what? Problems. All right? So let's look at this here. So we had the two trees, Genesis 3, 1 and 14. We're not going to go there, but we can look at that. You're going to write that down. You had the one tree that was represented Yahuwah, or the spirit of Yahuwah, Yahusha, Elohim, right? The spirit of Yahuwah Elohim, and the other tree represented the spirit of the enemy, or the spirit of Hasatan, the adversary. That's all that means. So this is why they were instructed not to eat of that certain tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? He said any other tree that you want except that. Eventually, man was supposed to be able to eat of the tree of life. See, because this is what the whole thing was when the Yahuwah Elohim was coming to the garden in the cool of the day, visiting with him, right? And then later on, we see that the messengers, or the angels, if you want to say that Paul said was in chains of darkness, they were supposed to be teaching this man so that he could eventually learn how to eat of the tree of life and live forever. Because eventually that's what our whole goal is, to become God or become Elohim. And when you say that, people look at you like you're crazy, but you're going to have the same body that the Mashiach had. Right? Because he showed you that in part of the covenant, because that's part of the covenant too, because there has to be a covenant seal, right? If we go through the steps of the covenant. So we know the covenant seal was what? The mark in his hands and the mark in his side that he told Thomas to touch, to prove. Anyway, let's keep rolling. So, you know what? Let's go back to that one. We got to get that. Genesis chapter 3, Trey. Genesis chapter 3, we're going to read verse 1 and then verse 14. You there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Let's get to it, my nephew, young man.
Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 and 14.
Yes,
Or
verses 1 and verse 14.
Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahuwah had made. And he said unto the woman, yeah, has Elohim said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden?
And we're gonna look at these lies we're gonna look at him. We're gonna get there in a few minutes. Go ahead and give me verse 14, Trey.
Verse 14. And Elohim and Yahuwah said unto the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life.
Okay, so let's go further. So when we look at that word life, right? It comes from this word number H2416 from the Hebrew word chay, living, green, vegetation, reviving, sustenance, renewal. From 2421, chaya, to have life, prosperity from death. So that's what the tree of life, because then we went to it said the tree of life. This is what it's all about. See, it was supposed to end up being for sustenance, for renewal, to give us life, prosperity from death. Because if that tree represented the Mashiach, what else could it give? And it's the same thing. When he came what? To give us prosperity, to have life, to be renewed, right? All these things, and not face the second death. That's why we have to grab hold of him. We have no choice. That's why some of these, I can't understand how some of these cats, I don't believe in that. I know that New Testament. Okay, partner, do what you do, right? So when we look at the word kaya, it's the chet yod and the hey, it just means the Torah path, because the Torah path is life. The Torah path gives you prosperity, right? The Torah path gives you renewal and sustenance. When all that coronavirus was going on, I wasn't working, my wife wasn't working, right? I had just came home off the road. And the thing about it is, I never got any unemployment. She didn't either. But we never ran, we never had to go anywhere to ask anybody for anything. Why? Because we try to walk the Torah path. The Father's going to sustain us. He always is going to keep us prosperous. He's going to make sure that we have life, right? So the Torah path reflects what? The strong arm of protection. We just got done reading that, and we just got done reading that. See? That's how you get your protection. Because really, when you understand who brings the evil and who makes the good, well, the choice do you got? Because you can't get away from him. Proverbs chapter 3, Trey, the ah ending in Hebrew words equal feminine. The Torah is Hamashiach, right? But it also represents the Ruach or the Ru'ah, the set apart one. So let's go to Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 1 through 18. We're going to break this down in the next session because we're going to actually use this blue letter. Because by now we should know how to do it, but I always got to remember anybody might be a brand new person that just comes to this video. They might not have went through the other series. They might just come to this and they're like, well, what do these numbers mean? Well, then we can show them what the numbers mean, because you got to have, I'm gonna tell you something. That's the one, I praise y'all so much for that. When I started learning how to use these interlinear, because I had them for years, but I mean, I just never used them. And, for other reasons, it was a thing where you don't need that. No, yes, you do need that. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 1 through 18. There's a whole lot of things I found out that I need, that I was told, oh, you don't need to have that. Yeah, you do too. Because otherwise, you're not going to be able to get to the root of the problem. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 1 through 18. Let's look at this ruach. Let's look at this wisdom, this spirit. Go ahead, son.
Proverbs chapter 3, 1 through 18. My son, forget not my law, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and long life and peace shall they add to you. Let not mercy and truth forsake you. Bind them about your neck.
I mean, it's all over this book. And see, Torah, even though it points to life, it points to instruction, and it points to the covenant, it points to the Mashiach, and it points to the Ruach or the Ru'ah, which is the Holy Spirit. This is what gives you life, having these things in your life. See? That's why they both can say that. If I went to the book of Sirach, I can show you that over and over, and I can say she. What you mean she? Well, even if we get ready to read now, it's gonna call her a she. In every other book, it calls her a she. But when I get to the New Testament, all of a sudden now it's a he. But then when I go to the interlinear and I look that word up, Holy Spirit, it's gonna tell me Ru'ah, which is AH, and it says a feminine noun. Come on, Trey.
Verse 3 and verse 4. So shall you find favor and good understanding in the sight of Elohim and man. Trust in Yahuwah with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear Yahuwah and depart from evil.
Right, because people say all the time, well, I'm a good person. I don't hurt anybody. I help, I feed the poor. I do all these things. That's being right in your own eyes. Because you're not working, you're not doing the things that you must do. And one of the things that you must do is grab onto the tree of life or grab onto the Mashiach and do the things that, I mean, didn't Paul say he does like the Mashiach? And we're supposed to be doing the same thing. Because the Mashiach was what? He was baptized. That's the first thing that brother started doing when he started his ministry. Then he was filled with the Ruach. But he told you in John chapter 15, right? If you ain't keep these commandments, you can't get no Ruach. He said, another comforter, if you love me and keep my commandments, I will send you a comforter that's going to lead you and guide you into all truth. So that means if you are not keeping these commandments and you ain't been baptized or immersed, you can't have no Ruach. You can jump and dance all you want in church and say, I'm full of the Holy Ghost. No, you're not. You're full of something, but it ain't that. Go ahead, son.
Verse I was at verse 7.
Come on.
Be not wise in your own eyes, fear Yahuwah, and depart from evil. It shall be health to your navel and marrow to your bones.
Right, your range. That's why I always say he searches the range. That means your inward parts. See? Your desires, your thoughts, your deeds, the desires and thoughts that lead to the deeds that you do. Go ahead, son.
Honor your substance, and with the first fruits of all your increase.
Right. You don't go to nobody's church, but somebody asks you for $1. And you look at them like you act like you don't see them. They always make eye contact with you and start walking. You already know he wants something. But then you don't want to give it to him. Not even remembering that everything you get comes from the Father, out of his mercy. Go ahead, son.
Verse 10. So shall your barns be filled with plenty, and your presses shall burst out with new wine.
Right. You have so much, and all that overage he give you and all that stuff he give it to you to help somebody else. Because now I can talk to this brother, find out what's going on, or this sister, find out what's going on with her. This brother Yahweh is one of the greatest masters of that. I learned that from him. Just riding with him for years. That brother's a master at trying to teach somebody about the Most High, or bringing some type of figuring out a way to put some book in front of him. Go ahead, bro.
Verse 11. My son, despise not the chastening of Yahuwah, neither be weary of his correction.
Right, because we go through things and all of a sudden it's a problem now. You know what I'm saying? Well, I've been doing this and that. I don't know what's going on. Okay, what were you doing before that? You think you're going to get away with anything? We get chastened for everything. Good thing you're getting it now. But you're supposed to endure it like a soldier. See, and then a lot of these things we bring on ourselves. I'm a witness to that. Go ahead, son.
For whom Yahuwah loves, he corrects, even as a father, the son in whom he delights. Happy is the man that finds wisdom and the man that gets understanding.
Right, because you want wisdom and understanding, but you can't get it. I already told you what you got to do if you want it. That's what you got to have. Otherwise, you get no wisdom. You get no understanding. You're always asking questions. Go ahead, son.
The merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold.
Right, you ain't got to chase no money. All you got to do is get whatever he gives you, but you won't be chasing this. Because as we see, this whole thing is falling apart right before our eyes. Just trust in him and he gonna sustain you. He already been telling you that the whole time because he's full of mercy. Full of mercy. Go ahead, son.
She is more precious than rubies.
Hey, man, how she gonna be a she? The New Testament says it's a he. Because them scholars, man, these scholars. Go ahead, son.
She is more precious than rubies, and all the things you can desire are not to compare unto her.
Right, because when you got the Ruach, when you got the Holy Spirit, that's everything. Because guess what? You already got the Mashiach too. And guess what? Now you got the Father too, because you're doing it with Father's will by even doing what you need to obtain her. And she's going to guide you and lead you into all things, into all truth. She's going to open up your eyes to things you ain't never even thought you could see before. Go ahead, son.
Length of days in her right hand, and her left hand riches and honor.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life.
Wait a minute, wait, whoa. She's a what?
Tree of life
Mm.
to them that lay hold upon her, and happy is everyone that retains her.
Right, so when we look at the word life, we just looked up. We get all those things with her too. Let's go to Revelation chapter 22, Trey, verse 13 through 14 now. These are all the stuff that Adam was supposed to, that he had obtained, but he lost. He lost it because he listened to the wrong counsel. We're going to get to that too. Because a lot of us don't, I mean, I didn't understand before I started looking at this thing from a Hebrew perspective. You cannot look at this. This is a Hebrew book. It was written in Hebrew for Hebrew. You cannot read this book just in the English and understand totally what's going on. You got to go to the, matter of fact, one of my lessons I had looked up the word Afro-Asiatic in languages. Guess what one of the language that falls up under that? Hebrew. Semitic. And it don't say nothing about nobody from Ireland, England, and nothing like that. Starts mentioning Ethiopians and all this type of stuff. Man, come on. Revelation chapter 22, verse 13 through 14. Because when he ate of the apple, when you sit down or you eat with somebody and eat in our culture, that means that you was in covenant with them. That's what that meant. That's why when Jethro invited Moses, what did Moses do? He became a part of the family. When he invited Jethro and to the wedding, and Jethro came to the wedding at Mount Sinai, what happened? He said, now I know that your Elohim is the Elohim. And then what did he do? He offered up sacrifices. And then the book says, when we go back, his seed ended up leaving him. He left there, because people say, well, he vanished. No, his seed, because we got to track down who he was, his seed actually attached themselves to Judah. Come on, Trey, Revelation chapter 22, 13 through 14.
Revelation chapter 2, verse 13 through 14. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last.
Right, the first and the last. He's the Aleph Tav, right? And we already know what the Aleph Tav is. Let's keep rolling. Now, Adam and Chava. Man had dominion or dominance. This is what dominion means, right? Over the garden of earth or earthly temple of Yahuwah. He was a type of king priest and the firstborn of all men. He learned how to do sacrifice from Yahuwah Elohim when the sacrifice was made for him and Chava, and his garments were blessed by Yahuwah Elohim, right? So we can go to, let's go to Psalms for the sake of time, Psalms 8, 4 through 5. And then I'm gonna go ahead and jump down to Jasher chapter 7. Because now we're gonna start to see these different type of sacrifices that's going to start to take place, because even Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they all set up these altars. Now Moses wasn't even born at that time, so how do you know how to do that? Because of the Melchizedek order. Psalms chapter 8, verse 4 through 5, Trey. Go ahead and read when you get there, son. Trey?
Chapter 8, 4 through 5. What is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you shall visit him? For you have made him a little lower than the messengers, and have crowned him with glory and honor.
Right. So for the sake of time, if you will see, that's what he said. He said, what is man? See? Read that again, Trey. Trey? Okay, maybe you have.
What is man that you are mindful of him, the Son of Man that you visit him? For you have made him a little lower than the messengers, and have crowned him with glory and honor.
So he crowned him with glory and honor. Now, if we went to Joshua chapter 7, y'all can write that down. You'll actually see the type of sacrifice he did, but it didn't involve any animals yet, right? But just for the sake of time, because I want to get through this here. I'm going to get through this part right here. All right, let's keep rolling. In Genesis 3:21 is going to tell us how Adam and his wife, how Yahuwah made them coats of skins and clothed them with it, right? So you keep that in mind. The man had dominion. We find in the book of Jasher and Jubilee that Adam was trained in the Melchizedek order. Adam, Seth, Methuselah, Noah, and Abraham. This is how Noah knew the difference between clean and unclean beasts. Go to Genesis chapter 8, Trey. But you got to remember, there was no Moses. See, because we always think, well, see, that's Moses' law. No, partner. First of all, it ain't Moses' law, because I can show you all over the book whose laws it is, right? But these brothers was already doing all these things before Moses was even born. So that it had to come from somewhere, but we have to do our due diligence, and we can find out where it comes from. But we gonna, but right now, let's go ahead and go Genesis chapter 8, Trey. Well, with these books here, I wouldn't even touch these. I was told not to touch these books. Worst mistake I ever made in my life. Because once I started reading them, I was like, well, wait a minute. All right. And then I go to these other manuscripts that was way before the King James was even written, and the stuff is all right there. Genesis chapter 8 and verse 20, Trey.
Genesis chapter 8, verse 20. And Noah built an altar unto Yahuwah, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar.
Right. So then not only did he build an altar, he knew the difference between unclean and clean animals before anything mentioned about unclean was even given. Now, and how Shem, up here, y'all, look up here, called Melchizedek, brought bread and wine to Abraham. Some people say, wait a minute, that can't be Shem. We're going to show you that. It is Shem. And how Noah got drunk, celebrating the new moon, making wine for the feast. Go to, again, Jubilee Chapter 7. I'm going to leave that for your homework. You're going to see that, because we're going to go through a couple of these chapters in just a second, and how Abraham was able to keep the laws and statutes of Yahuwah before Moses was born. Joshua chapter 9. Y'all need that some more homework for y'all. Because we can go to Genesis chapter 26 and 5, and this show going to tell us that. So the Melchizedek order was passed down from the garden. See, but that's one of my favorite things. When people start talking about the law of Moses, I'm like, man, it's just called that because Moses was an intercessor. Well, there was no, okay, well, hold on, but then let's go to Genesis chapter 26 and 5. So, so him and Yahuwah had a good relationship. Why? Because Abraham obeyed my voice, right? Which is his testimony, right? His laws, his statutes, and his commandments. Now, how was he able to do that if Moses wasn't born? They just look at it. They just be stunned like a deer in the headlight because of this Melchizedek order. That's how they was able to do that. The transferring of the birthright was passed down to Isaac, to Jacob, who built an altar and sacrificed. This is why, see, the firstborn was more than just for the firstborn getting like everything the father had. No, it means he also inherited the understanding that comes along with this priesthood, and they were supposed to be passing it down. This is why Esau is hated forever, because he sold this. It wasn't just about a birthright and the possessions. It was about this Melchizedek order. We're going to show you this. See? Let's go to Genesis chapter 35, Trey. There's so much stuff to this priesthood. More than just Leviticus, y'all. More than just Leviticus.
Genesis chapter 35, verse 1. And Elohim said unto Jacob, arise and go to Bethel and dwell there, and make there an altar unto Yahuwah that appeared unto you when you fled from the face of Esau, your brother.
Jump down to verse 3.
Verse 3. And let us arise and go up to Bethel, and will make there an altar unto Elohim, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I sent.
Okay, so when we look up the word Bethel, it's Hebrew word number H1007. It means house of Elohim. It's honestly, but I would not know that if I didn't use it in it later. Because that's what we showing this. We steady talking about the priesthood. We steady showing you about the house of your Elohim. And that's what this word means, house of Elohim. So let's keep rolling. Before the tabernacle, the firstborn offers sacrifices. I'm sorry. Therefore, he is called my son, my firstborn. Let's go to Exodus chapter 4 and verse 22, Trey.
You said Exodus 4 and 22?
Yes, sir.
Exodus chapter 4 and verse 22. And you shall say unto Pharaoh, thus said Yahuwah, Israel is my son, even my firstborn.
So we the firstborn too. That's why we having these problems. See, because here, if I went to Ezekiel, it's gonna tell me that Pharaoh, it said he's the dragon of the ocean, or he's the dragon of the sea. So the same way he rescued our people back then from the dragon, he gonna come and do it again. See, all this stuff is shadow pictures. But Pharaoh is likened to a dragon. Now, let's look at this right here. Before the temple, the firstborn offered sacrifices. After the golden calf incident and the tabernacle was erected, the Levitical priest did the sacrifices and became the firstborn to Yahuwah. We're going to get through all of this, y'all, but we got to get through this part first. Adam was king over Yahuwah's creation, Genesis chapter 1 and 26. And Yahuwah Elohim said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So dominion is H number 7287. It means to reign, to rule, to have dominance. Firstborn, king, priest, Melchizedek priesthood, for thou hast made him a little lower than the messenger, and hast crowned him with glory and honor. Glory is H number 3519, right? Honor, abundance, splendor, reverence, right? Honor is H number 1926, majesty, to be high, crown, give a crown. Didn't he say he just put this on Adam? So as you see, this man was king of the earth. He was crowned. He was majestic, full of reverence from all the animals and everything else. Let's go to Psalms, Trey. Psalms chapter 8, verse 4 through 5. You there, Trey?
Yes.
Go ahead and read it.
Psalms chapter 8, verse 4 through 5. What is man that you are mindful of him, and the son of man that you visit him? For you have made him a little Lord in the messengers, and have crowned him with glory and honor.
Have crowned him with abundance and given him a crown with majesty. So we go to Jubilees chapter 3, 7 through 17, the law of marriage and cleansing. You're going to see that in verse 28 through 35. Adam makes a sacrifice after his transgression. So this is y'all homework too, right here. Try to get to this. I need to read this because we're running out of time, and I don't want to drag this thing out. So Genesis chapter 2, verse 9, and then 16 through 17, the counsel of Yahuwah. Let's go to Genesis chapter 2, Trey. See, because we got to be careful who counsel we take it. Got to be careful about that. Genesis chapter 2. Because remember, when he cut his wife in his side, right? That was a brit or a cutting. It was a covenant made. And as he was giving glory and dominion, right? Anytime there's a covenant, there's a test. See? I mean, you have to follow the steps once you enter into the covenant, because we already know all the people that just got immersed a couple of years ago. Guess what? You entered into a covenant. Because really what you're saying is like a marriage covenant. All you say, I will do. So when you go down in the water and come back up, that's what that symbolizes. See, because now you are a bride. You are part of the bride. You are part of what makes up the bride. You trying to get to go meet your groom. That's why you got a lamp in your light full of oil, which represents the Ruach, holding it up so you can and giving off light so you can see when your husband comes. All this stuff is relevant. Genesis chapter 2, verse 9, Trey. And then jump down to 16 and 17. Go ahead, son.
Genesis chapter 2. And out of the ground, Yahuwah, your Elohim, to grow every tree, and is pleasant to the sight, good for food, the tree of life, also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
I'm jump down to verse 16 and 17.
Verse 16 through 17. And Yahuwah, your Elohim, commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it. For in the day that you eat thereof, you shall surely die.
Okay, so here's Adam's test of obedience to choose a covenant life. Because he got the tree of life right there. You got Yahuwah Elohim coming down every day to talk to him and converse with him. What do you think they was talking about? Huh? You don't think he was teaching them? So much so, because who did the serpent go to? The serpent didn't go to the man. I mean, let me keep going. Failure to pass the test and keep covenant. Genesis chapter 3, verse 6 through 7. Come on, Trey.
Genesis chapter 3, verse 6 through 7. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he ate it. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons.
Right. So they sat and ate. Now let's go to 1 Timothy. Okay, this is what we got to understand. They took the counsel of Hasatan, and we're going to show you that. And that's what got them in trouble. 1 Timothy, because now they sitting down breaking bread. That's basically what it symbolized. 1 Timothy 2:14, Trey.
Let me ask you a question right quick.
Yes.
Won't he standing right there next to Eve when
he was right there. He was right there, and we're going to show you what he should have did. And I had forgot about that until one of my nephews called me and pointed that out. I said, wait a minute, blah, blah, blah. Then I had to go back and look at it. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I had forgot all about that. But exactly, he was standing right there, and it's something that he should have did as a firstborn. Because see, the firstborn, they always come to the rescue. The firstborn, they always offer themselves up. See, we're going to show you that. See, that's why Abraham jumped out there to save Lot. He put his life on the line. That's why the Messiah came, to put his life and come to rescue you. This is what the firstborn do. Right, Joseph, Judah. I mean, I'm just trying to tell you this. So this firstborn it means a lot. And we got to go through this whole part about the firstborn. We're going to show you who was doing the sacrifice. We're going to show you this. See? 1 Timothy 2:14. But that's a good question there. And yes, you are exactly right. 1 Timothy 2:14.
1 Timothy 14. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression.
Right. So he should have did something at that point. He should have did something, but he didn't. But what did they do? They took the counsel from the fallen one. That's what they did. So when we go to Genesis chapter 3, verse 1 through 3, and then verse 14, or Genesis chapter 2, 16 through 17, what does the serpent do? The serpent questions Elohim's authority. Right? Genesis 3 and 4, the serpent calls Elohim a liar. Right? Didn't he not say, I mean, with his slick, with his, I mean, he subtle with it. Right? But he called Elohim a liar. You go to John 8:44, you write that down. Genesis 3 and 5, the serpent tells Kahuva or Chava, you shall be as Elohim. These are all the things that they did. They took his counsel. So by eating, they made a covenant with Hasatan. Exodus 34 and 15. Right? Let's go to Exodus chapter 34 and 15 real quick, Trey. We running out of time.
Exodus chapter 34 and verse 15. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after their Elohim, and do sacrifice unto their Elohim, and one call you, and you eat of his sacrifice.
Right. And that's why we got to be careful about doing like the nations. We ain't supposed to look like them. We ain't supposed to talk like them. We ain't supposed to enjoy the same things that they do, because it's foolish. See? But now we look at that word there. It's H number 1285, barith, or I can break it down to barit from H number 1262 is the root word. So it means a covenant or a pledge. So if I want to break it down a little further, I can go to H 1262, bara. It means to eat, consume. Hasatan was an inhabitant of Eden, and Adam and Chava ate of his sacrifice. How could that be, Saul? How can it be? I ate of his sacrifice. Yeah, you're gonna have to tune in next week, because we're gonna get to that. I can't get to everything like one of my teachers said. I can't give you everything at one time. But one thing we like to do up here, we like to show and prove. So knowledge of good and evil, a mixture of Babylon, to confuse by mixing. Hasatan was now their covering, because Yahuwah couldn't be their covering no more, because they broke his commandment. And we got to be careful of that. We got to do what we got to do, no matter if it's family, friends, job, whatever. That don't mean nothing. See? But it was the tree of knowledge of good and evil, light and darkness. It's a mixture. It was a Babylonian tree. But the other tree was a tree of life, period. But all life and light and everything good and knowledge and understanding and wisdom and a long life and all these things come from that one tree. But he chose the wrong counsel and made a covenant with it. So counsel is H number 6098 from the Hebrew word estah. It's advisement, purpose, together, exchange, to conspire. What? This is what Adam and Eve did. They took the counsel from Hasatan, and if we can go to Romans 6 and 16, to whom you obey. Ain't that what Paul asked you? From H number 3289, ya'atz, to devise a plan, to consult. That's what they did. This is why they got thrown out the garden. And so the same way the garden was set up, Yahuwah said, you know what? I'm going to try this again. So I'm going to choose this people that I found this baby in the field. I'm going to start like that. And I still want to dwell amongst them. He wanted to be around us so much. He said, if I make sure when you go to the bathroom that you bury it, because I don't want to step in it when I'm walking through the camp at night when you sleep. But this is what we got to understand. He wants to dwell with us. And even when we go to the last book, he's telling you that's what he's going to do. So they took the counsel from Hasatan and ate from the Babylonian tree, Genesis 3 and 6, 1 John 2 and 16, spiritual worship of sin. Let's go to 1 John chapter 2 and 16, Trey. We got about another 8 minutes. And if you notice, when that covenant was broke, what did he put on them? He put a curse on them. And so the same thing is when the covenant was made on Mount Sinai. All that you said we would do. That was a marriage vow. The Shabbat is a wedding ring. We can show you this. So when they did this, guess what happened? As soon as we broke away from that, now the book of the covenant, it says there was nothing else added to it. Now all of a sudden you got all these curses following you around. It was never so. It never was added from the beginning. All you had to do was keep the laws, which is the 10 Commandments, and the Hokim and Mishpatim. That's all you had to do. But we couldn't do it then, and we still can't do it now. 1 John chapter 2 and 16, because everything else is more important to us than that. I got something I got to do. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. 1 John chapter 2 and 16.
1 John chapter. For all that is in the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eye, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world.
So what did he do? He went to the woman, and then guess what? That lust kicked in. Because what she saw, only way he can deal with you, because it's really you too now. We just can't put everything on Hasatan, because you be having stuff you secretly want to do. I know, because I used to secretly do a lot of stuff. See? Because I was already on my mind. So it's something I heard, something I saw, something I touched, something I tasted. Now I got problems. Because I got to deal with this all day. Because that spirit ain't gonna leave you alone. Let's go to Romans chapter 6 and 16. Can I fight it off? That's the question. Romans 6 and 16, Trey. Come on, baby.
Romans chapter 6 and verse 16. Know you not that whom you yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants you are to whom you obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness.
We unto obedience unto righteousness. Who can tell me real quick what does the word righteousness mean? Come on, y'all got to the Bible.
Keeping the commandment.
Say that
Keeping
again.
the law. Keeping the law and commandments.
That's right, baby. That's right, Sister Kim. You got it. That's right. I was worried for a minute, but I know you look here. You the best note keeper in the class. All right. So we know that. So that's why again because we know we look at the word. I'm righteous. Are you sure you're righteous? Because when we break it down in the Greek or we break it down in the Hebrew, it's gonna tell us exactly what it means. So now you got a question you got to ask yourself, huh? Let's keep rolling. I think we might can get one more. Now, the broken covenant and divorce, kicked out of the house, the temple which equals the garden. Adam should have refused to eat and offered himself to Yahuwah for his wife's transgression. That's what he was supposed to do, Nick. But he didn't do that. He went along with her and ate. So that tells me that in the cool of the day, sounds like he was dealing with Adam. Every day he was coming through there walking, looking for him. Sounds like he was talking to him. He was teaching that brother. See, because he's passing down this Melchizedek order that Adam passed down to his kids. Because when you look at Cain and Abel, we're going to get to them. You're going to see a big difference. See, when they even in the sacrifices, what did Abel do? He brought the best firstling of the flock, the fattest firstling. How did he know how to do that? Because he was taught that. And Cain, they say, well, man, was he Cain? He couldn't bring nothing from the ground. Hey, no. He was supposed to bring the first fruits, his best. That's why one of the feasts that represents that, don't it? Let's keep rolling. So he said that if you do this, if you disobey this commandment, you're gonna die, right? So we go to H number 4191, ma'uf, to die as a penalty, be put to death by negligence of moral conduct. Same thing now. Ain't no difference. Don't keep these commandments, you're gonna die. It's gonna be a penalty because you neglecting your moral conduct or your reasonable service, and you dealing with the Babylon mixture of the churches that we came out of. Because they'll say on one hand that this is this, but on the other hand, they do that. Oh, I love the Lord. But then again, I got a Christmas tree up in my house. I love the Lord, but I'm at the buffet with them fried pork chops and all that. And see, no one knew the difference between clean and unclean. It's always been passed down, is what I'm trying to show you. Right? So when we go to the word ma'ut, we got the mem, the vav, and the ta. It means to bind or seal, create a connection between chaos and destruction. Right? The light in the darkness. Right? The bohu tohu. This is what's going on. So every time you step out of bounds, think about it. This is what you're doing. You creating a connection with the Babylon tree or the Babylon mixture, who ain't nobody but Hasatan. So sin and death, disobedience of Adam caused death, not only to the proprietor, but also to other innocent victims. What innocent victims? All of us. Not to even mention the animals that had to die for sin. Right? This is how, when Paul talks about the law of sin and death, this is what he's talking about. So that's why when people say, I ain't under no law. Okay, but which law are you talking about, brother? It's a whole lot of them. Huh? The law of Elohim, right? The law of the Mashiach. I mean, which one are you talking about? The law of sin and death, the law of righteousness. Help me out. Because I need to know exactly what you're talking about. Because if you're telling me that I don't have to love my neighbor as myself, and I don't have to love Elohim with all my heart, mind, and soul, I can't talk to you no more. Because even here it is, the one that in a half a book that you say you got, he telling you that. He said that's the greatest of all of them. So I ain't got to do that no more either. Anyway, it's 5 o'clock. So of course, Brother Saul could keep going, but I'm not going to do that. And we're going to stop right here. And we're going to get back next week. It's going to keep getting deeper and deeper. So I just hope that everybody that popped up can come back. But it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. All right. So is there any questions? Hold on a minute. Let me stop this here real quick.
I got something I want to tell you.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, go ahead, sister.
Look, I was reading Esau Edom last night. I was wondering why y'all was so mad at Esau. And now I know, because he didn't just give up his birthright. He just gave up being the firstborn, period. All the responsibilities of being the firstborn.
Exactly. You got it. That's exactly right. Now you're starting to understand. I think we had a couple more people, they fell off, but it is what it is. But you know, this is why we do it like this. See, this is why we got to take these steps, because now it makes sense to you. That's why he said, I hate Esau forever, because he gave up this priestly order. That's what it was all about. All right. Any other questions? None? Come on, y'all. Surely you have a question. No? All right. Well, let's go ahead and close out then. If y'all don't have any other questions. Yahuwah, we come before you, Father, as always, thanking you for all things. And we praise you, Father, for this information. We ask that you watch over each and every one of us, Father, as we walk and try to walk this walk. Help us be strong. Help us fight off our flesh. And help us keep our mind on you so that we can do your will. No matter how hard it gets, no matter how tough it gets, Father, let us concentrate on you and just eventually, Father, keep fighting until we can walk the way that we need to walk with you. So we thank you, Father. We praise you, Father, for your ultimate love gift, Yahushua HaMashiach. We thank you for the mighty, mighty Ruach HaKodesh. And we ask these things in Yahushua's name. We pray. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
All right, so
Hallelujah.
I'm getting ready to go lay down. So, but I get kind of energized when I do this type of stuff. So,
Excellent class, so Brother Soul.
we're going to get to it now. Don't even
Learning
worry
so
about
much.
that, baby.